Jean Pateau is one of the few companies which respects the purest of the French perfume industry's tradition. From the very beginning, a Jean Pateau perfume is conceived, created, and composed at Jean Pateau. Today, Jean Keralo, perfumer creator for the House of Jean Pateau, has applied himself to perpetuating the savoir-faire of the name, original creation and manufacturing of exclusive perfumes. Mr. Keralo, how does a new perfume come into being?
How does a perfume come into being? Well, it all begins initially, of course, with an idea which is most likely put forward by general management of the company. But above all, it is through the marketing which builds the concept for the new perfume around a defined theme. It is then up to the perfumer to carry out the work which will lead to a composition that is coherent with the theme. To do this, a whole team of people is involved. We need advice from everyone, even so the work of the perfumer is to assemble and construct the perfume itself. And how do we construct this perfume? Well, we begin with raw materials which are gathered here in what I call my perfume organ. Simply, it is a collection of different fragrances. It is what we call the perfumer's palette. This is my palette, the one I have chosen for Jean Pateau.
When you create a perfume, do you have in mind a particular type of man or woman?
Yes, even if it isn't a conscious act, you always think of a certain type of woman or a type of man. The so is always here, as a person is a finality in itself. A perfume is, despite everything else, a combination, a fundamental combination which we will then modify in order to obtain the desired results. The final result must be something which is harmonious and stable, but also a maker of dreams and a bearer of emotion. For me, a perfume is something which lives, whereas the raw materials are simply odors.
Next, the formula is tested, and how is this done?
Initially, I write out a formula which will then be studied mathematically so that it can be reproduced should the test be successful, and also, from a commercial point of view, so that the formulation can be reproduced in sufficient quantities.
And how is the manufacturing carried out?
First of all, of course, the necessary raw materials must be bought. We buy these raw materials and I select the different products needed, be they natural product or synthetic, in order to obtain the same quality time and time again. As for the natural product, we try to make a selection between two harvests and adjust the formula in order to continually reproduce the same result. This is very important. As far as natural products are concerned, we are one of the biggest users in the world for perfumes such as Joy or Mille, which are very, very rich perfumes. We use jasmine and rose of exceptional quality. Aside from Chanel, we are the only manufacturer in Paris to use jasmine from grass, and we also use a large quantity of roses and other costly products. In fact, we have our own very special technique for these products. We apply a technique which transforms the concrete into the absolute, meaning we buy the solid product, which is what we call the concrete. Then it is transformed into a perfumed liquid known as the absolute of jasmine or the absolute of rose.
How many flowers are needed to make the absolute or absolute?
Well, to make 1 kilo of absolute of jasmine, 6 to 7 million flowers are needed. Basically, because when the flowers are picked, they are very small and very light. In fact, 8 to 10,000 of them are needed to make 1 kilo of flowers.
And how long does it take to make a perfume?
It takes 3 to 4 months to manufacture a perfume. The raw materials have to be selected and bought. The concentrate has to be made, followed by the alcohol solution, and then finally the maceration period is undergone, which means that the product is left to age before freezing and filtering. During this whole process, certain controls are taken to see if the standards we set have been respected, and that there have been no errors during the manufacturing process.
I presume that this applies to all byproducts.
Yes, of course.
And how should perfume be applied in order to achieve the best results?
In my opinion, perfume should be applied directly to the skin, and more specifically at the pulse points.
For its precious fragrances, Jean Patou has created bottles which are made according to the purest tradition of the glass industry. The manufacturing of a bottle is carried out in 2 stages. The first being the hot glass stage, and the second, the cold glass stage. The glass, melted at 1,350 degrees, is first poured into the mold to obtain a rough outline, and then modeled by hand with tongs, and finally blown into the final mold. Once cooled, the bottle is heated to 600 degrees to strengthen its resistance. The bottle and its top are then cut, polished, and brushed on a wheel in order to refine the shape and the luster of the glass. The stone wheel shapes the angles, and the cork wheel smooths the surfaces to perfection. The felt wheel livens the brilliance and the luster of the glass. Finally, the bottle is decorated with a real leaf of gold. This is the work of a goldsmith. At Jean Patou, the desire for perfection is also manifested in the packaging. The bottle is filled drop by drop so as not to rush the perfume. In order to obtain the traditional blocking à l'émery, a process which Jean Patou still carries out today, unlike many other companies, the bottle and its top are ground against each other with an abrasive substance, so they become impressed together. Therefore, there is only one top for each bottle. In order to ensure a perfect fit, the blocking of the bottles is carried out using gold beater skin. The gold beater skin is a thin animal membrane which is fitted while still damp around the neck and the top. As it dries, it shrinks and ensures an airtight seal. Finally, a thread of gold is wound round the neck and the top, which seals each bottle with the greatest finesse. What does a perfumer think about when he sees his perfume finished?
A perfumer, when he sees his finished bottle, as for example with joy, sees the fulfillment a dream, aimed at refining a woman and the result of thousands of hours of dedication from his workers. He also sees a representation of a true luxury craft whose creation is used above all as a means of seduction.
Jean Patou perfumes, the most precious in women's hearts.